Well, we made it through Oscar-themed verses. Now you can sleep a little bit better now.
I'm technically not done with it.
No, we still have some Oscar-themed verses, if you know what I mean, coming up soon. This is one of them, actually. And this is...
Not many people probably think about that. But...
No, not at all. This is February now. We officially made it through a month of 2014. And the bad movies hopefully are finally over. No, guaranteed not. But at least for the month they are. So, February is going to be another theme. We're going to go with theme of romance. So, we're going to throw different verses together that are going to have like a love theme around them. So, to start us off is actually going to be a nice little battle on its hands. We have Footloose on one side. We have Dirty Dancing on the other side. AJ, take it away.
Alright. Well, generally these are paired together, but as far as specifically what they have in common, I suppose it's it basically involves the girl who's basically forbidden from the whole. It's not dancing, but it's not as particular in Dirty Dancing as it is in Footloose. In Footloose, she's literally banned from dancing.
Yes.
In Dirty Dancing, she's basically banned from most everything. It just happens to include dancing.
Correct.
And there's the dancing rebel that makes them find their wilds. Actually, Laura Singer's really wild in the movie already, but she finds that way of being defiant towards what's holding her back.
Yes.
By finding the wild dancer, if you will. To really simplify it as much as you can. I guess that's why they get so compared. Because they're totally different, like, style-wise and the dancing in general. Because you have 60s, Phil Spector songs, and then you have, like, 80s and Foreigner and leg warmers over here.
What a random way to put it.
Yeah. So, I'm going to start with Dirty Dancing.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I don't think this is a sexist comment, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. Actually, if anything, it'd be sexist to myself and my own gender. Seeing as to where a lot of the respect for Dirty Dancing comes from, being a guy, I almost feel unqualified to legitimately review Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
Because you're not even going to get near the passion for it from a guy than you are from a... That's just the way it goes.
And I remember watching this movie a ton when I was growing up.
Yeah, I haven't seen...
Listening to the soundtrack constantly every morning going to school with my mom.
My mom always talked about it, but I never actually watched it that much. I've only seen it maybe 3 times of that. Wow. But somehow, someway, through other movies, I managed to know it well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how many different movies people have been watching Dirty Dancing in.
Yeah.
So... But the thing is I'll get to this in a second, but the interesting thing about Dirty Dancing is it's got something going on that not many people realize. I don't even know if it's, well, yeah. It's pretty blatant, but at the same time, it's got a deeper meaning than just being that sexy dance movie that will get you laid if you show it to your girlfriend. We'll start with the fact that, it's your very basic story, of course, where you have the girl who has the family that pretty much has her own lockdown, and they're perfect and everything. Mm-hmm. And then they go to Kellerman's, which is this... It's where rich people go to bask in their richness.
Yes.
And she meets Johnny Castle, who just his name sounds heroic.
Yeah.
And she is the quiet, meek. I mean, she's, as he says, she's fearless, but she still has that meekness quality about her. Mm-hmm. So much so that her name is actually Baby. What they call her. Her name's actually Frances, which is not near as appealing, I guess. And course, and he's one of the, he's basically there. He's almost, he's not quite a male prostitute, but he might as well be.
Yeah.
He's there to show the rich women a good time.
Mm-hmm. He's a gigolo, without being paid for it.
He says they slip money and diamonds into his pocket, but it's kind of it's not something he's supposed to provide, it's just something that happens.
Yes.
It's like, and he's the misunderstood hero because everybody sees him as like the man whore when it's actually him that's being used by the women. And he's always being misjudged, especially by Jerry Orbach, of course.
Yes.
Everybody thinks, I think Penny was her name, the girl that got pregnant and then had the botched abortion. And almost died. Everybody thought was his child, and everybody thought that they were together just because they had the amazing dance chemistry.
Mm.
Like the scene where she first sees them dancing together, and she automatically assumes they're a couple, and no, they just dance together. That's it. That's just how great their dancing chemistry is.
Vincent and Chi-Chi.
The big question regarding Dirty Dancing is, given its reputation, what makes it so appealing?
Okay.
That is a huge question, especially among guys. I don't know how modern, like, teenage girls take to it. I have no idea. Like, I don't know if it's... Because I think the thing that really makes Dirty Dancing appealing is how timeless it is.
Agreed.
Because it's been around since 1987. And it's just... all the scenes that worked back then still work now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still got that... It's got that forbidden love melodrama. But... I guess it's just the perfect combination. You have the dancing, you have the soundtrack, which basically is... I learned this the last time I watched it. Pretty much every time you hear a classic song... and you hear it and you think, oh my god, I love that song, even though it's so old, there's a very high chance that song is in Dirty Dancing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I keep expecting to hear Unchained Melody, and then I think, oh yeah, that's the other Swayze movie. But I think there's... Yeah, it's just a whole perfect storm of things. Because you have... Some people just love melodrama. Mm. Even if that's all it is, it's just melodrama. You have that combined with that soundtrack. You have the dancing. You have the nostalgia. Like, the movie's set in 1963. 1963 was almost 30 years before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
But even watching it, somebody, even though that time period was 30 years prior to me, there's still always that sense of nostalgia no matter who's watching it.
Yeah.
You can just tell this is nostalgic to somebody.
Definitely.
And even, that's another thing that makes it timeless, is even to people, even if you weren't, like, alive in that era, the feeling, just the atmosphere and the feelings everybody goes through and just everything can make somebody feel nostalgic.
True.
I also think it might help that, given, like, because there's so many movies like it now, with just how corny and sappy it is, this actually may have been the origin of a lot of movies that were basically trying to copy it, and that's... People automatically associate it with those... Just group it in with those movies and dismiss it as another corny and sappy movie, even though it was probably the inspiration for most of those, and not of itself. Something going on in this movie really works, obviously. Even if... Like I said, obviously I don't, I can't go crazy for it the way, like, say, women would, but there are some moments, like, even if you're a guy, any guy that denies this is lying. There are a couple of moments in this movie where I think even guys can't resist, even if they hide it inside. Especially, the two big scenes at the end. The very famous line when he goes to get her before he pulls her on stage. And the moment where the song is playing.
Oh, God.
And they finally do the lift in front of everybody. I think even if you're a guy, if you say that scene doesn't hit you somewhere, you're clearly lying. and trying to keep your main guard, I suppose. But
Oh, forget that.
yeah, and it's worth noting, like I mentioned earlier, that song won an Oscar.
Deservingly so, too.
So, so technically, we're still in there.
I mean, that's an iconic song in movies, too.
Okay, now talking about actual criticisms. This isn't from me. This is from, like, to my understanding, this is generally what the criticism people have that don't like it.
Okay.
Is that they think the chemistry doesn't work with Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey. Mainly because, basically, without a better way of putting it, Jennifer Grey at this point in time was very plain Jane.
Mm.
And Patrick Swayze was like the ultimate super stud. And it just seemed... I guess that put some people off that there's just... It seemed practically impossible that somebody like Baby would end up with somebody like Johnny Castle. Especially because he's like... He believably feels unobtainable at the beginning, so much so that it's hard to believe how they become would-be. Well, for starters, I think that's, like, the point.
Yeah.
Because they're coming from such two different places. That just adds to it. On top of the fact that it also helps that not only is there a contrast between the characters themselves, but apparently Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey didn't get along practically at all. Apparently she already hated him from the set of Red Dawn, and he had to convince her to be in the movie. But she took convincing because she didn't like him that much. And then there's the scenes where they're... This is really interesting to watch those scenes when you know this. A lot of the scenes of them rehearsing were them really rehearsing. Like when she's like laughing, when she can't stop laughing, and when he's getting frustrated trying to get her to do the move right. That's not Johnny and Baby, that's Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey being filmed without their knowledge.
Nice.
That also happened with the scene though. There had to be some good moments on the set because obviously that chemistry is there, whether some people don't see it. Like the moment where they're like crawling on the floor and doing all that stuff, that was the real them as well. So there was clearly something there. On top of the fact, I guess the contrasting clothes is supposed to be another thing. So like Johnny's always wearing really dark stuff, and she's always wearing really light stuff, which you can really tell, especially with the black background. Basically every clue, like I said, regarding their looks, the actors themselves and how they felt about each other, and the whole contrasting thing, I think it all adds up to the whole how contrasted their characters are. And I think it all adds into that.
It's got a Grease vibe to it too.
Yeah, in that regard. Coming from two separate places.
Yep.
That's a common thing. You could list off 50 movies or more.
Supposed being like Travolta of the 80s and...
Yeah. Now, as far as the deeper thing that's going on with Dirty Dancing, what many people, I guess, haven't caught on to, I guess, like I said, I think it's pretty blatant, but I guess some people just kind of, because of the kind of movie it is, it's something you don't think about. There's something that Baby says in her narration at the very beginning, where she's talking about how it's the summer of 1963, and she says it was before the Beatles and before Kennedy got shot, etc. This movie is a huge statement on changing times. Because, and it's really, I suppose a lot of people choose to ignore it because the movie's ending is so uplifting and happy. But when you think about it from this perspective, the ending is actually a downer. Because you have these, the same themes are kind of underlying, but they're doing it in different ways. Because you have all the rich people, and they're in the 60s, and the music is what it is. And we were slowly descending into, like, the more rock era. Yeah. And especially the scene where you see at the end where all the rich people are dancing and all that. And with Jerry Orbach accepting that Baby's not exactly who he thought she was and how she's changing as a person. And everybody's changing in some way or another. He as a character himself is changing by accepting that she is changing. And all of this is underlined by the fact that the times are going to be changing.
Mm.
Because after all this happiness and all the big dance sequences and everything, Kennedy's going to get shot, Vietnam is going to go into full force, and rock is going to completely come to a peak with the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird... I went from tragedy, the Beatles peak.
Awesome, Beatles.
The point is,
yes.
all these changes are happening. And it's basically... The movie works as a foreshadow of those real-life events.
Mm-hmm.
So, I also like the fact that we don't know what became of them.
Mm.
Because she... Oh, and also on top of that, there's a great foreshadowing scene where, right before the big number at the end, Kellerman is backstage with that guy Tito, I think is his name, and he has a big monologue about the changing times. But I think, like I said, with the way the movie is and the way it's basically played off as this romantic dance movie, I think people don't really let their minds go there when they think about this movie. They just kind of think that's extra dialogue just to be there, to set the time period, and the movie just goes. But have you ever noticed, unless I totally missed something, but I'm pretty sure I didn't, what becomes of Johnny and Babe's relationship is never talked about.
No.
Because there's no epilogue.
No.
It just ends at the big scene. Like, did they decide they were going to meet again later in life? Did she leave Kellerman's and never see him again?
Was it a fling that went nowhere afterwards?
Did she stay with him at Kellerman's and they went off somewhere? It could be anything.
Yeah. And the
I don't have a personal theory.
the horrid Dirty Dancing 2 had nothing to do with either of this story anyway. So yeah,
there's like a frame of Patrick Swayze in that movie,
mm-hmm.
like a frame, I think. But no, it's not related in any way whatsoever.
No, so we have no further knowledge of the characters.
I've actually seen that movie,
mm-hmm.
but I got nothing. I don't remember anything. Diego Luna was in it. That's all I got.
Tito made himself.
Came out of nowhere to be in that movie.
Yes, he did.
So yeah, Dirty Dancing is definitely more than just what a lot of people would give it credit for.
Yeah.
And it's
got more substance to it.
Yeah. And like I was saying, even if it does have a lot of sappiness and melodrama and all that, something about it works for a shitload of people.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that is, even if it can't be identified, is what's made it what it is and given it the reputation it's got.
Agreed.
So yeah. Now I guess we'll go to Footloose.
Kenny Loggins would appreciate that.
Okay. I'll actually start off with something interesting I learned about Footloose.
Okay.
Obviously the plot is these kids are out partying. We don't see this, it's just talked about. We see it in the remake, but the Craig Brewer remake, which is exactly the same movie. The same screenwriter even wrote it. So, but kids were out partying, they were playing their music loud, all that jazz, and they got in a wreck and died on a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically caused them to outlaw dancing and loud music in the town. I thought it's an interesting plot, but it's kind of far-fetched.
Yeah.
I felt like. And of course, the teens rebelling and, getting music back and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. Apparently that shit really happened.
Really?
It was in Oklahoma in 1978, I think. And I guess, dancing and loud music had been banned for, 90 years. And a band of teens rebelled against it and got the law taken away, basically. I don't know if it's, the exact story, and there's, some, middle parts in there that aren't...
I'm sure there's some
publicized, but Footloose came from a true story that apparently the screenwriter of the movie was a part of.
Interesting.
So that's wild.
Not a very well-known fact either.
So, once again, we have The technically the new kid on the block this time is the male character, unlike Dirty Dancing. Ren, who is Kevin Bacon, who had pretty much only had Animal House, Friday the 13th, and Diner before this came along. And this pretty much made him explode into who he is now.
He has a game named after him, come on.
Much to his dismay sometimes. Like, apparently he pays DJs to not play Footloose at weddings, because everybody's, like saying, take the dance floor, dance to Footloose, but apparently, you can really tell, too. Apparently, a lot of the... He can, really,
Yeah.
He can dance the fuck out of a song, but apparently a lot of the time he had a dance double, too. You can really tell that in the scene, and when he goes into, that, whatever the fuck that was, that empty building where he thinks he's alone, and he just jams the fuck out all over the place.
Yes. That
famous scene. You can tell when it's Kevin Bacon and when it's not Kevin Bacon if you watch the scene closely.
Yeah.
Anyway, he comes in with his mom and he's living with some relatives and he's the new kid at school. And basically he likes to dance and plays music loud. Go figure, the one place he has to move is the one place that is outlawed dancing and loud music.
Go figure.
But that was the 80s, so
yes, indeed.
Shit just happens sometimes.
That's completely agreed.
And the town is basically, they don't really say this because that's not really the way a town works, but this town is basically run by this preacher, played by John Lithgow. And it's very interesting, by the way, to see this very 80s fun dance movie. And here comes John Lithgow with this, dare I say it, Oscar-worthy performance.
Yeah?
Just came barreling into this 80s teen movie with this incredible performance, but that's you basically get that with the package when you hire John Lithgow. Apparently he was filming this along with Terms of Endearment, a movie he got an Oscar nomination for, so something tells me he only has 2, but I'm pretty sure John Lithgow gets Oscar nominations by accident. He's just that good.
This is right around the time of Harry and the Hendersons too.
When he won his Emmy for Dexter.
Yep.
He was just doing his thing. Acting just seems so easy to him.
Didn't he win Emmys for Third Rock too?
I am not sure. I hope.
I believe he did.
So, yes. So, long story short, just Footloose in a nutshell, John Lithgow's awesome.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, anyway. Shit, clothes are falling on me. So, Footloose has 2 Oscar-nominated songs.
Okay.
They both lost, but the actual song Footloose got nominated, and Let's Hear for the Boy got nominated. I don't know what they lost to, but it was 1984. I have no idea. Some things about Footloose. Okay, I'll get right on this immediately, since this is the romantic-themed month. Not to take anything away from Footloose's quality, the love story in Footloose is the movie's weakest quality.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, maybe I'm just not looking at it from a good angle, or what. Or maybe my mind isn't as open. I think Laurie Singer's character is very unlikable. She is just this, I get it. She's the preacher's daughter. She wants to be rebellious. She's gonna be a skank.
Yeah.
But, And she's got this boyfriend who literally, this is, for an 80s teen movie that's basically about fun and dancing and shit, Footloose can get really heavy.
Yeah.
You have the whole, her brother was one of the people that crashed, and that's why Lithgow is so into the whole thing. There is a scene where Laurie Singer gets the living shit beat out of her. Normally you have the evil boyfriend who's like, hey, I'm tougher than you, don't you dare show me up. And he just does his bully thing and then he leaves.
Mm-hmm.
He gets his comeuppance and so forth. No, there's actually a scene where he beats the shit out of her. Beats her to the ground and she's bleeding. And he leaves her there in the dirt and the rocks. So I guess you could say that's something that sets Footloose apart from the movies that people tend to borrow from it.
Okay.
Footloose is actually pre-Dirty Dancing, which is a weird thought. I wouldn't necessarily say it. Dirty Dancing borrows from it. Maybe a little bit. But there is something. What makes that interesting though is not to take away from Dirty Dancing, but the thing I like about Footloose is how much more interesting its characters are.
Okay.
Because the people in Dirty Dancing just kind of are what they are. I mean, like they go through those changes, of course, and it's interesting to see how they evolve and how Johnny Castle had the thing where he's not what anybody expects him to be, including the audience. But the characters in Footloose are a lot more fun to watch. Like obviously Kevin Bacon's got to really show his charisma here, and that's what made him break out. Like, let's say, not to bash this kid, but the remake of Footloose was like 2.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny Wormald, I think was the kid's name. Where's he? So that shows you that Kevin Bacon really had something going on that in this particular movie that really made this character a hero in his own right. And believable that his little personal rebellion, that his little, could conceivably abolish a law.
Yeah.
I said I don't really necessarily care for Laura Singer's character, but she's definitely not a conventional love interest. So she's still it's an interesting character to be the love interest in the movie. So I definitely give her credit for that.
Okay.
Like I said, we've already been on the John Lithgow love train. There's Diane Wiest, who is great in most things, especially when she's playing motherly characters like in Edward Scissorhands and Rabbit Hole and many other things. Most of her filmography. She's basically, she's John Lithgow's wife, and she's basically there to kind of be the background character that just kind of sits there and kind of lets the world walk all over her. Like Allison Janney in American Beauty, basically. And then she has this really great scene in the church where she basically stands up to Lithgow and tells him why things are wrong for the reasons that they are, and because of the way that he is. Her I'm a 2-time Oscar-winning actress comes out there, even though she didn't have either of them yet by this point. Okay. Now it's time to talk about Chris Penn. Chris Penn's character in Footloose I like better than all the characters in both these movies combined.
Yeah.
He's this guy is a cut up. He is his name is Willard, and he's basically, we think he's going to be the bully character, because the first thing he does is Ren's walking through school, and he runs into him, and he insults Ren in some way. He insults him for his tie, I think, and then Ren's immediate retort is, he's wearing this cowboy hat that he's always wearing, and he says something like, I like your hat, do they sell it at a men's store, or something like that. And just that one insult makes Willard his best friend. And there's this whole segment that exists because of Chris Penn. There's this whole segment where Willard is taught how to dance because he doesn't know how to, and he's embarrassed by it because they go to a club and they're doing this big thing, and Willard has to stand on the sidelines, and he ends up getting into he loves fighting people, but he doesn't know how to dance. So they do this whole segment where Ren teaches him how to dance. Supposedly, the reason this segment was made was because Chris Penn really didn't know how to dance. And basically what this big montage is, with Let's Hear for the Boy playing, is Kevin Bacon and various others actually teaching Chris Penn how to dance.
Nice.
And as we see at the end of this montage and at the end, Chris Penn became a very good dancer.
Yeah.
So, yes. It sucks that he's no longer with us. Because he was very, he was always a good face to see in movies. And this was definitely a great part. I don't know. Well, it's hard to compare this character to Nice Guy Eddie, but let's just say this and Reservoir Dogs were his best parts for sure.
Yeah.
So, but there are, and it's got, a good sense of humor too. Like, apart from all all this really heavy, serious shit that Footloose goes into. Like, the tractors playing chicken thing. Like this scene, there's another guy, I think Woody is his name. He's another one of their friends. And they're talking to him, and they're getting ready to do the playing chicken with tractors, and he calls Woody over and says, so has anybody, died doing this? And Woody just says, just once, and walks away.
That's real reassuring right there.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning that a young Sarah Jessica Parker is also one of the friends. I think that's about it for familiar faces. Unless I'm forgetting, like, a really small cameo, but I'm pretty sure not. Kenny Loggins is one of the dancing shoes at the beginning. I think he's the gold shoes. Which, kind of, obviously it's, he's famous for the song, but it's kind of reminiscent of, in the remake, Craig Brewer was the director. Mm-hmm. About the time we see Kenny Loggins dancing in this one, it's Craig Brewer in the remake. But nobody knows that because you only see their shoes.
Nice.
There is one of the things that kind of is interesting about Footloose, and maybe not in the best way, is the movie has this big thing going. Okay, basically the main problem is getting the law abolished. Basically, so they can have the big thing is they're planning to have this big dance, which obviously as of now is illegal more or less. So we have the big moment where he's standing in front of everybody and does the big speech, and then Lithgow has the big "oh, I understand" thing. He has the big, the emotional dance with Diane Weiss, and everything comes to a promising conclusion. Everything's great. They kind of leave this Chuck story, I think Chuck was his name, the abusive boyfriend, out to dry. At the very last minute, like right before the movie's gonna end, they finally get together and they beat the shit out of him and his guys. And then they go right into the party and he does the big running down the steps and he says, "What are y'all doing? Let's dance." And he throws the confetti. This is like the most endless stream of confetti ever. I don't know how that was accomplished. But regardless, and then that just goes into the end. That was really abrupt.
Yeah.
This whole movie just comes to a really abrupt stop. But that's basically Footloose in a nutshell. It's fun. It's nostalgic 80s fun. Like, this was nostalgic for the 60s. This is nostalgic for the 80s. And so on. So yeah, this is a great double feature to do if you want to do the Let's Rebel and, just dance all the fucking time. And all the dance scenes are great. It's not like one of those, alright, this is another dance scene, let's hurry up and get this over with and all that. The movies basically are the dancing, and that's what their appeal is. The story is just kind of there to be a foundation for the dancing. And the romance, I guess. So, yeah, as far as romance, Dirty Dancing is definitely what you want over Footloose.
Yeah.
And, Footloose is good, and Footloose also has its own classic reputation. But honestly, if you have to choose between the two, you definitely want to go with Dirty Dancing.
Okay.
So...
that is the final verdict here.
It would appear to be.
Alright, so Dirty Dancing wins. I'm not completely surprised you picked Dirty Dancing either, honestly.
Yeah. For a while there, I wasn't a fan of Footloose, but when the remake came out, I actually... this might sound wild, even though they're the same movie. I actually kind of like Craig Brewer's remake.
I do too.
And it made me revisit... a remake actually served its purpose. It made people revisit the original instead of trying to take its place.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I like it. So yeah, it made me revisit it. Because I initially didn't like Footloose when I was younger. But it's grown on me now, so...
it's good to know. So, next week...
luckily, Dirty Dancing has not had the misfortune of being remade yet.
Give it time.
Yeah, I'm sure. It's probably got an IMDb page already, just...
like when they were talking about remaking Grease with Zac Efron and Vanessa Hudgens. Which that never came to fruition.
The Footloose remake was going to be Zac Efron forever.
Yep.
That was like 3 years in the making, and then they pulled out that kid. Wasn't he like a backup dancer for High School Musical or something?
Yes.
Yeah, and like I said, he didn't have the Kevin Bacon charm, so we really haven't seen him since. No. So, oh well.
Next week, we're going to go back in time again to when there were two people that were in two completely different movies that are also very themed towards romance, and two very different performances versus something that they're doing now. So that's the best way to put it without giving it away. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. So, AJ, any parting word for the first romance-themed verses of 2014?
I don't want to end on any cheesy quotes that everybody knows, so I'm just going to say that's it.